Agrabah. A world that at this point in our journey really ramps up the difficulty, as the Heartless here are notorious for being relentless in many of the fights. And though this difficulty spike can be annoying at times, especially during the cave entrance mini-boss, it's a world that I personally have a soft spot for. See, as a 90s kid, I grew up watching the movies like Lion King, Pocahontas, Hercules, and one of my favorite of the Disney Renaissance, Aladdin. Being loosely based off of the Arabian folktale of the same name, it's one that taught me that trying to be something or someone that you're not can actually cause more harm than good. That said, even to this day, I still proudly wear my interests on my sleeve, and this interest goes whole hog in Agrabah. Stepping foot onto the narrow streets of this world and having to navigate its puzzles is so enjoyable to me that I'll speed through Kingdom Hearts sometimes just to get to this world. It's so rich and dense and compact that at the time of writing this intro, my video on Olympus Coliseum isn't even out yet. But funny business aside, the world of Agrabah has some very interesting twists and turns and mythology that I'm excited to talk about. As always, a huge thank you to all of you who support the channel through the Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube. For more info on how you can show your support, be sure to stay till the end. Arriving to the world through the gummy ship lanes, I honestly love how simple the design of the world of Agrabah is, showcasing the two main hubs of this world, the streets of Agrabah and the Cave of Wonders, two contrasting locations that are instantly recognizable from a distance. Entering the world, we get our first look into the darkness that lies here through a cutscene between Maleficent and Jafar, really emphasizing that thematic shift from the bright whimsy of the first worlds to a darker and more foreboding sense as the story continues. A darkness which quickly meets us head-on as we have to battle the new bandit Heartless that inhabit this world. Thankfully, getting through this and venturing through the streets, we come across another Princess of Heart, Jasmine, learning from her that Jafar has completely taken over the city in his search for the keyhole. However, our conversation gets rudely interrupted.
Aladdin, where might I find this street rat? Jasmine, allow me to find you more suitable company, my dear princess. These little rats won't do, you see.
Jasmine, run!
Ah, the boy who holds the key.
And fighting our way out of this ambush, we eventually end up in Aladdin's high-rise house, a makeshift home with an amazing view of Agrabah's palace, and a few rugs for some comfort, with one in particular stuck under a dresser that appears to be trying to free itself. Freeing the carpet, it flies off towards the desert in a hurry, and we obviously have to follow it. I mean, who's ever seen a flying carpet before? I know I'd want to follow it just so it could show me the world. Thankfully, leaving Agrabah doesn't mean that we'll have to wander the desert aimlessly to find the flying carpet, as it meets us and seemingly asks us for help. Seeing as I'm someone who hates dry heat and sand, we're more than happy to go on a ride with the flying carpet. However, this carpet isn't leading us to an oasis, but to Aladdin, fighting for his life outside of the Cave of Wonders. Saving him isn't really too difficult, as using Simba's charged attacks take care of the waves pretty quickly. And upon freeing Aladdin, we're introduced to this world's most iconic character, Genie. And the following cutscene of Aladdin and Genie is an absolute delight to watch, as it calls back to the scenes of the first meeting in the Disney movie, and the explanation of the 3 wishes. It's a cutscene that feels like a warm welcome back into a very familiar world of a bygone era. However, returning to Agrabah with Aladdin, we get anything but a warm welcome, as there's now even more Heartless than before. Fighting through bandits, fat bandits, and pot spiders, we find that some pathways have become blocked, and we'll need to unlock some gates just to get through to the palace. If we decide to stop by Aladdin's home at this point, we'll actually get a cutscene of the gang discussing Jafar's plan to use Jasmine to find the keyhole, emphasizing to us what's really at stake here. Arriving at the palace gates, we find that snake Jafar with Jasmine. However, he's one step ahead of us and snatches the lamp away. I'm not really sure how Aladdin didn't notice the lamp being taken literally from his hands by Iago, but I digress. But with Genie now under the command of Jafar, he drops Jasmine into a pot, which leads to our first boss fight of this world, the pot centipede. This, in my opinion, is one of the more unusual boss fights in our journey, as both its head and its tail are the boss itself, and when dealing enough damage to it, it'll make it separate into multiple pot spiders. So be sure to stock up on plenty of potions and even ethers, because it's practically impossible to get through this fight without taking any damage. Now with the pot centipede taken down, we find Jasmine gone, with only Jafar's laugh haunting us from afar. At this point, going from room to room in search of Jasmine proves to be fruitless, and there's only one other place that she could have been taken to, the Cave of Wonders. Unfortunately, when we get there, the tiger head emerges from the sand, and we can tell that the tiger is sporting some very new eye color. Calming it down enough for us to enter it safely isn't going to be an easy task, as this fight can be fairly annoying. See, the head moves around a lot, and the Heartless here can fly at you pretty quickly, so be sure to take your time with this one, as we only really need to hit the eyes maybe once or twice with each combo, so that we don't end up falling off of the entrance's nose. Thankfully, with the tiger head tamed, we can finally enter the Cave of Wonders, and this place truly is a wonder of a dungeon. The upper level is a pretty linear path to the treasure room, with some platforming here and there. If we do fall off the ledges, we'll end up in a cave system that's practically a maze to get through. To help you navigate through it, I'll let my good friend Tusi Phoenix tell you which chambers connect to which rooms.
The entrance is connected both by stairs and a bottomless pit to the Relic Chamber. The hall, as mentioned, connects to the Dark Chamber with the save point, but if you take the other staircase down, you'll find the Silent Chamber. From the hall, you can also take a semi-secret path to the bottomless hall across this water trap, and find a very conspicuous block we can drop into the chamber below. Awkwardly, if we drop down from there, we land in the Silent Chamber, yet somehow the block landed in the Relic Chamber. Now those caves, the Dark, Silent, and Relic Chambers, are all interconnected with these tunnels and waterfalls, which, counterintuitively, are fully traversable from either direction.
A huge shout out and thank you for Tusi for letting me borrow his footage, as his videos are incredibly informative on the worlds of Kingdom Hearts, so be sure to check out his channel. I've left a link in the description. If we head inside the hidden room and hit this specific block here, this will help open the path from the treasure room to the lamp chamber directly above us. All the meanwhile, Jafar, within that lamp chamber, uses his wish to find the hidden keyhole to the world, meaning we need to hurry up if we want to save Jasmine and this world. Quickly making our way back, being sure not to fall off again. Let's try that again, eh? Making our way through the top chambers and through the treasure room, we'll enter our final area of this world, and finally get a chance to meet the mistress of all evil herself.
That boy again?
He is more persistent than I expected. Why not explain the situation to that boy Riku? Doing so may actually prove useful to our...
Wait a second. Are you Maleficent?
Jafar, let Jasmine go!
Not a chance. You see, she's a princess. One of 7 who somehow hold the key to opening the door.
Open?
What door?
But you fools won't live to see what lies beyond it. Genie, my second wish, crush them!
Genie, no!
Sorry, Al. The one with the lamp calls the shots. I don't have a choice.
God, I love that cutscene. The coldness of Maleficent, the anger and desperation of Aladdin. Square really did amazing work with this pivotal moment. But now we'll have to face against Jafar himself if we want to free Jasmine and Genie. And this fight honestly couldn't be easier. I mean, Genie will do everything in his power to avoid hurting you, and Jafar's only attack that can really hurt us is his laser beam. The fight is just annoying to get through, as Jafar will move around a lot from ledge to ledge, and may even sit himself high above you in between the ledges, making you wait for him to move. Beating him will learn the new spell Blizzara, significantly boosting our ice damage. However, our victory is short-lived, as Jafar now wishes for more infinite cosmic power by turning into a genie. This transformation completely destroys the floor in the middle of the room, and Jafar moves down into that level below. This is our final bout. We'll need to jump in after Jafar to finish him off once and for all. Landing at the bottom of the chamber, the heat of the magma is intense as we wait for Jafar to show himself. And when he does, he's massive and intimidating, giving us a feeling that we may be in over our heads. That said, Genie Jafar is now just like any regular genie, getting himself a lamp of his own. But can we even make it through this fight? Yeah. This is it. Just attack Iago and win. But after this jumping simulator, we defeat Jafar and force him back into his blackened lamp, getting us the Fire Us spell this time, and our first Ansem report. I'm honestly really glad that this fight is rectified in Kingdom Hearts 2 by giving us an actual fight against the power of Genie Jafar. Sadly though, our victory with beating Jafar is bittersweet, as in the scuffle we have lost Jasmine, just like we did with Alice back in Wonderland. We still have a job to do nonetheless, and we seal the keyhole, saving Aladdin's world from the looming and pervasive darkness. Now, escaping from the collapsing cave and returning to Aladdin's home, we lament over our losing Jasmine, but thankfully gain a new companion, with Genie, as he joins our party as a new summon. Being freed by Aladdin with his final wish, Genie's shackles of servitude are severed, allowing him to help us whenever we're in need. And though our journey through Agrabah's story may be finished for now, there's still more to explore and understand with Agrabah and with Aladdin's story. Now, it may come as no surprise to you, and not to sound like a broken record here, but Aladdin's original story, Aladdin and the Magical Lamp, is quite different from the Disney version we all fondly know. It's also a lot weirder than I had initially thought when first looking into it. One of the biggest differences of the story being that though the story itself is a part of the collection of Arabian fairy tales coming from 1001 Nights, otherwise known as Arabian Nights, the story of Aladdin wasn't actually part of the original collection and was in fact a much later addition to that entire collection when it was translated into French by Antoine Galland and storyteller Hannah Diab. As well, much of the plot takes place primarily in China and Africa, and not in the Middle East. Thankfully, the story is fairly short and can easily be read on a lunch break, if you're so inclined. I've left a link to the audiobook in the description for you to enjoy. But let's now take the next few minutes to summarize the story of Aladdin and the Magical Lamp. In the beginning, Aladdin is sitting idly by, doing nothing for himself nor his family. He's so lazy, in fact, that his father dies from disappointment. Not feeling any sort of remorse or sadness for his father's death, Aladdin goes to play outside the following day and meets an African magician claiming to be Aladdin's uncle. Oblivious to the magician's trickery, Aladdin brings him home and has his mother prepare a feast for them. The magician then explains to Aladdin and his mother that he is wealthy and will take Aladdin under his wing, giving him some new clothes and a shop of his own to make some money for his family. The following day, the magician dresses Aladdin in some very fine clothing, feeds the boy, and even takes him on a long walk deep into the mountains. But with the sun soon going down, they need to make a fire to stay warm and have to make camp for the night. With the fire made, the magician tells Aladdin to obey him thoroughly and throws powder onto the fire, making it glow eerily. As the fire erupts, the magician conjures a spell, revealing a hidden door in the ground by their feet. Whereupon Aladdin is told to take the magician's ring for protection, and to grab the magic lamp from the treasure room deep within, as well as not to touch anything else, or else he will die. Entering the cave, Aladdin does just this, but when he returns to the entrance of the cave, he's told to quickly hand over the lamp, and in a brief moment of clarity, he refuses to hand the lamp over to the magician until he is out of the cave. This angers the magician thoroughly, and he closes the cave on Aladdin, leaving the boy alone in darkness. For 2 days, Aladdin cried, and in his desperation, he brought his hands together to pray, unknowingly rubbing the ring the magician had given him, which suddenly produced a frightening jinn from the ring itself. When the jinn asked what Aladdin's wish would be, the young man responded quickly to be delivered from the dark cave and safe back at home, to which the jinn does instantly, landing Aladdin right back home. And as if he hadn't learned any lessons from this moment, he promptly asks his mother what's for dinner. Although they had no food, Aladdin realizes that he can sell the beautiful lamp and some of the jewels that he secretly stole from the cave to provide them with enough money for some food. That night, as Aladdin's mother began to shine the lamp for selling, another, more hideous-looking jinn erupted from the lamp, asking them, just like the other before him, what their wish would be. Seeing this jinn, Aladdin's mother faints, and Aladdin asks the jinn for food to be brought to them. In an instant, a lavish meal on pure silver plates and platters took up their entire table, providing them with plenty of food for the next few days. These plates and platters of silver would be sold off one by one for a good sum of money, allowing him and his mother to live without worry. After a few years of this, Aladdin, while out in the market, overhears that the Sultan's daughter is to walk the streets and that no one is to look at her. Naturally, the young man sneaks a look while she is out and finds the daughter to be incredibly beautiful. So beautiful, in fact, that he has his mother go to the palace with the jewels from the cave as an offering to the Sultan to have a chance at marrying the princess. However, the Vizier of the Sultan, wanting his own son to marry the princess, asks the Sultan to wait 3 months before deciding. And not even 2 months pass before the princess is married to the Vizier's son, upsetting Aladdin, but giving him an idea. In his anger, Aladdin calls on the Genie of the Lamp and wishes that the princess be brought to his own bed every night, and that her new husband be tossed outside in the cold, letting both return to their bed at daybreak. Yeah, it's a bit creepy to say the least. It's weird. Naturally, the princess is freaked out when she suddenly appears in a stranger's bed and is told that he is really her husband, to which Aladdin quickly and calmly falls right asleep next to her, until the princess and her husband are returned to the palace at daybreak. This continues every night for a full month before the Sultan remembers that he had made a promise to Aladdin's mother to have Aladdin marry his daughter. However, when he calls upon Aladdin's mother and sees that she is in drab clothing, the Sultan is rightfully confused and orders her that if his daughter is to marry Aladdin, he must produce, and I quote, 40 basins of gold, brimful of jewels, carried by 40 black slaves, led by 40 white slaves, all of whom must be dressed splendidly. A request that, with the help of the jinn, was granted instantly for Aladdin. On top of this, he wishes for 10,000 gold in separate purses and to be dressed in his finest attire. And at this point, I'm sure you can tell the inspiration for Prince Ali's parade. As he arrives at the Sultan's gates, the Sultan is so impressed by this display that he eagerly readies his daughter to marry Aladdin, swearing off her first marriage. Aladdin, however, refuses the Sultan and insists that he make her a beautiful palace so they could marry there. And, like magic, a new and immense palace appeared nearby the next day, providing the couple a place to marry and live in. Surprisingly, this goes off without issue, and the two actually end up having a good life together. Aladdin is even made a general in the Sultan's army and is well liked by many of the citizens for years to come. Aladdin had become so popular to the people that word of his exploits had reached Africa and the magician who started all of this. Enraged, hearing of what could have been, the magician makes his way to China, scheming and acquiring as many oil lamps as he could along the way. When at last he arrived at the palace, he told the princess and her servants that he was a merchant who was giving new lamps in exchange for old ones. Unbeknownst to the princess, she exchanges the old and magical lamp that Aladdin had left behind while out on a hunting trip. Waiting for nightfall, the magician calls upon the genie of the lamp, wishing for the palace and the princess to be transported back to Africa. Upon returning from his trip, Aladdin finds his palace and his bride gone. When the Sultan finds the palace and his daughter gone, he furiously arrests Aladdin and orders for his beheading, believing that the young man had played a trick on him. An angry mob soon storms the Sultan's palace, forcing him to spare Aladdin, whereupon he gives the young man 40 days to find the princess and bring her back. For the next few days, Aladdin wanders the city, the desert, as well as a nearby village for any signs of the princess, but can't find anything on the whereabouts of the princess nor the palace. And just like he did years before in the cave, Aladdin knelt and clasped his hands together in prayer, and unknowingly rubbed the magic ring, summoning the fearsome Jinn once again. Aladdin pleaded to the Jinn to be brought to the palace and to his wife, and before he was even able to speak again, he was transported in front of the princess's window and subsequently passes out from exhaustion. The next morning, the two reunite and devise a plan to kill the magician by poisoning him during dinner. That night, the princess requested that the magician get his finest wine to celebrate their union, though while turned away, the princess dropped a deadly powder into his cup, and upon drinking his entire cup, he toasts to her and collapses dead, allowing the princess and Aladdin to reunite. Calling upon the genie of the lamp, they returned to China, living happily ever after. Or so they thought. Unbeknownst to the couple, the African magician had a younger brother who, upon learning of his brother's death, vowed to get his revenge against his brother's murderers. His plan was to travel to China and disguise himself as the religious leader, Fatima, to have Aladdin and the princess destroy themselves through the jinn that they commanded. When he arrives in China, his plan seems to go well, as he disguises himself as Fatima, killing her as well to avoid any potential confusion. When he gains access to the palace, the false Fatima meets the princess and requests a tour of the entire palace, wanting desperately to find the magic lamp. Though he doesn't find it, he tells the princess that the palace is beautiful, but is seemingly missing a roc's egg in the middle of the grand hall, knowing full well that this could cause a lot of problems for the couple. That night, when Aladdin returns home and the princess asks for a roc's egg for the grand hall, he agrees with her, as the word of Fatima isn't one to be taken lightly. Soon after, when the genie is summoned and asked to get them a roc's egg, they are met instead with a horrifying shriek that nearly collapses the whole palace. This request is too far for the jinn, and he denounces Aladdin and his bride, saying that he's had enough of their wishes and will not hang his own master up as a piece of art. For those that don't know, a roc is a mythical bird of Middle Eastern folklore that is powerful enough to command jinns. Thankfully, just before the jinn is about to leave, he alerts Aladdin and his bride that the religious woman, Fatima, is not the real saint, but is instead the vengeful brother of the late African magician. And in a puff of smoke, the jinn vanishes, taking the lamp with him and leaving the two to deal with this imposter themselves. Aladdin quickly tells his wife to bring the false Fatima into the palace, saying that he isn't really feeling too great and will need her assistance. When the false Fatima is brought to Aladdin the next day, he quickly takes his knife and stabs and kills the false Fatima. From this moment on, Aladdin and the princess lived for themselves, not even calling upon the jinn from his ring. Some years later, Aladdin is made sultan and has many children to continue his rule, and thus ending the story of Aladdin and the magical lamp. So, as I had stated earlier, this original telling of Aladdin being a later addition is a bit of an oddity within the context of 1001 Nights, primarily serving as what's known as a frame story or an overarching story that uses its time to tell many smaller but similar stories. These smaller stories even feature a wide variety of characters, historical figures, mythical creatures, and plenty of magic, all of which were popular in the fairy tales of the medieval period of the Islamic world. But before we talk about the stories and the mythology within Agrabah, let's talk about Agrabah itself, as this world and its history is just as important as the myths themselves. When running through the streets of Agrabah, you may find that it looks like a stereotypical Middle Eastern city that's filled with colorful rugs, street vendors, and stone buildings. But what I find fascinating here is that Agrabah is actually a fairly faithful depiction on classical Baghdad, the capital city founded in 762 CE by the Abbasid Caliphate of the Islamic Empire. Baghdad was built as a fortified metropolis of scientific, cultural, and historical discovery, a center point for everything entering into and coming out of the empire. We can actually see this in the city's construction, as at the height of its power, the city walls and buildings were laid in concentric circles that led into the central square and golden palace of the city. It's this small yet powerful detail that is actually depicted in Kingdom Hearts Agrabah, as from the entrance of the city, you're able to make your way straight to the palace gates. We'll even see this again during the boss fight against the pot centipede, as you're able to cut through the entire city throughout the fight. That said, with Baghdad being the center point of Islamic authority and of commerce throughout the Middle East, it thrived as a cultural center of the empire as well, establishing a place for all to connect through religious worship and storytelling, as it's through the stories of the outside world being brought into Baghdad and to her citizens that would craft the myths, folktales, and legends that we know of today, with the most famous being the framed story of 1001 Nights, leading to our eventual entrance into Agrabah. And just as this world opens with formally introducing us to Jafar and Maleficent, let's now talk about the smarmy Vizier and his mythology. Jafar, to me, is a very interesting character, as he's both a Vizier and a sorcerer, two titles that held very serious religious ties to the Islamic world during the early ages of the empire. Starting with Vizier, it was a position of the Near East caliphates that stood as a political and cultural advisor of the Islamic Empire. Believed to have derived from the Semitic word wazir, meaning helper, the Vizier was meant to help or provide aid in the decision-making process throughout the empire. However, with Jafar's second title as a sorcerer, this is where it gets really good. First off, magic within the Muslim world was a very touchy subject. Many viewed the use of sorcery as a sin against God, while others may have viewed it as a tool given by God to help those in need. Within the Quran, for instance, the term sihir is believed to be the stand-in for magic. I should mention as well that many translators haven't really been able to fully decipher the word, as its original context isn't fully understood. As for magic and sorcery within the Islamic world, its view was split into two separate categories within the Islamic world, that being white magic, or the healing and natural magic, and the second being black or dark magic, as being the more demented and unnatural uses of magic. To add to this, the mystics of Islam were believed to have separated the use of magic into different branches, including interpreting dreams, astrology, prediction, divination, and witchcraft, just to name a few. I won't define all of them here, as I'm sure you're more than capable of recognizing the few mentioned. Something that ties the belief of sorcery and magic to this world of Agrabah is the fact that dark magic and witchcraft are both mentioned within the Quran, and as well, for the most part, are associated with the reign of King Solomon, a king who was said to have created the Cave of Wonders. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The last mythical element of Jafar that really sets up his character is how snake-like he can be. Get it? You see what I did there? He becomes a snake in the movie, and... Anyway, did I mention that I hate that we never get a boss fight against Jafar as a snake? I mean, God, that would be so cool. But comments aside, the aesthetic of Jafar as a snake is a prime example of the beliefs held towards snakes within Islam and of the greater Arabic world, as snakes were extremely dangerous and even more so misunderstood during the 7th century, with many during that time having no way of differentiating between what snakes were and were not venomous. Many thought that the assassins would use venomous snakes to quietly sneak into their victims' homes and kill them in their sleep, quickly leading to snakes being perceived as creatures of malevolence and death. A malevolence, I'll add, that fits into Jafar's entire being, as he continues to further himself into the darkness to kill Aladdin and the gang. Now, when meeting Jasmine in the alleyway behind some boxes, God, I should really phrase that a little bit better, we get a small introduction to Aladdin and his heroics. But sadly, when looking into Princess Jasmine, there isn't really much to discuss. The only thing I found was that Jasmine's name in the Arab world is meant to represent peace, purity, and grace. Features that our princess here has plenty of. On top of this, it's thought that the city of Damascus gained the title the City of Jasmine due to the floral scents of jasmine and the bustling spice trade that was there at the height of the Islamic Empire. After helping Jasmine, if we make our way to Aladdin's high-rise apartment, we'll find our next piece of mythology. This carpet is, in my opinion, the single best character in Disney's Aladdin, and the most intriguing of the entire world. Throughout the Asian continent, the trope of a flying or magical carpet as a fantastical mode of transportation is a fairly frequent tool used for iconic characters in many myths and folktales. In Russia, for instance, the tale of Prince Ivan sees him acquire a magical flying carpet from the Baba Yaga in his quest to kill Koschei the Immortal. Within the Hebrew and Islamic legends, tales told of King Solomon's extravagant flying carpet that covered nearly 60 square miles and could travel 1,000 miles in a single day. Most importantly though, and more than likely the inspiration for Agrabah's flying carpet, was a modern tale from 1001 Nights alongside Aladdin of a prince finding a flying carpet. In this story, 3 princes must each find a rare artifact in order to marry and become king. In their travels, it's the eldest of the 3 who, when in India, finds a magical carpet that can instantly travel wherever he can think of. It was said that this carpet was laden with golden embroidery and etched with Bengal tigers along its body, bearing a striking resemblance to Aladdin's magical carpet quite well. That said, carpets play a very significant role within many religions around the world, especially so within Islam, as prayer rugs have been and are still used today during the Salah, being the practice of formal worship by praying 5 times a day in the direction of Mecca. For Muslims around the world, prayer rugs are extremely significant due to their being physical barriers between the person and the ground. creating a sense of cleanliness for the worshipper. And this may be stretching the belief slightly, but this may actually connect with the myths of the flying carpet, as prayer in many religions, not just Islam, is something seen as a lifting experience, a moment where the person praying is able to ascend and connect with the divine, essentially flying above the ground and above the filth of the material world. Of course, this is all just speculation, and whatever the case may actually be, the thought behind the flying carpet is truly a fascinating one, and one that would bring anyone closer to the divine. And now, at this point in the story, we've followed the carpet deep into the desert, saved Aladdin, and are now on our way back to Agrabah thanks to the help of our new friend, the Genie of the Lamp, a character who shares a deep connection to this world as well as the mythology of ours. So, what exactly are genies, and what power do they truly have? Well, for starters, the term genie is the English term for a creature known as a jinn, an invisible and smoke-like being that was said to exist alongside humans in the natural world. Believed to have primarily come from Islamic and Arabian folklore, some scholars have found a variety of pre-Islamic texts mentioning the jinn in both personal accounts and poetry. During the medieval period, jinns were believed to be morally ambiguous creatures, beings that were neither bad nor good. Interestingly, within Islam, it's believed that jinns were formed in the same vein as humans, with both being created from the natural elements of the earth, as well as being subjected to the rule of God. That said, jinns did have more power than humans, and were believed to have been able to live for hundreds of years, gaining a wealth of knowledge of hidden truths of the past that they could reveal to whomever asked them to. And as we had seen within Aladdin's original story, not all jinns are created equal, as another kind of jinn, the Ifrit, was one with much more power and malice. As chthonic beings, or spirits of the underworld, Ifrits were often associated with fire. This is why the Final Fantasy summon is typically depicted as a fire demon. What's more is that in later periods, Ifrits were viewed as wrathful creatures who were capable of possession and murder. However, this belief is more modern, as Ifrits during the pre-Islamic period, and even during its rise, were sometimes viewed as angels of God, as instruments of his punishment and wrath towards blasphemers. This is partly the reason why the world of Agrabah has so many enemies who cast fire or are associated with it. Comparatively, many outside of the Islamic sphere during the medieval period saw jinns as being similar to both angels and demons, since jinns were capable of both benevolent and malevolent acts towards mankind. Lastly, we need to talk about the elephant in the room, the 3 wishes that Genie mentions to us after saving Aladdin.
Patience, my fine feathered friend. Any 3 wishes. Oh, 1 wish, a 2 wish, a 3 wish. Then I make like a banana and steal it.
Now, I really hate to say this, but the rule of the 3 wishes, in reality, is completely bogus, and was actually a modern literary device during the 19th century with the rise of Orientalism. As the Western world became fascinated by the East, oftentimes many people would integrate their own Western view and understanding into the beliefs and stories of the East. The number 3, in particular, was an extremely popular example of this. In the West, it often relates to the Holy Trinity of Christianity, the 3 fates of Greek myth and of the Norse, as well as the Celtic matres, all of whom used the number 3 to great effect, combining the views of the jinns and their magic to that Western view of the number 3, ultimately crafting the trope that we know of today as the rule of 3 wishes. This rule of 3 wishes, and the wishes themselves for that matter, it's thought that attaining what was desired with very little effort, even through the use of magic, was an illicit method that was against God's plan. In opposition to this, the use of such magic as a means of protection of yourself and of others from the evils of the supernatural was viewed as the holier and more suitable method of the magic. However, the question still stands, how did the Jinns become so synonymous with granting wishes? Well, this was more than likely due to a combination of different storytelling elements that appeared when traders or scholars moved from place to place throughout the Asian continent. In India, for instance, many within Hinduism made use of the Kalpavriksha, a wish-granting tree that dates back to the Vedic period. Here, people often wished to the tree for good fortune from the gods in exchange for continued devotion and offerings to them. It's believed that through these shared stories and experiences of the bordering regions, that Jinns and their belief spread further and further throughout the world. But now, after fighting off the pot centipede, we need to help free Jasmine. So, this is probably one of the more mysterious additions to the Disney version of Aladdin, in comparison to the other mythical elements of this world. For one, the cave has been transformed from a small hole in the ground, as described in the original story, to an incredible tiger-headed entrance that's reminiscent of the phrase, "into the mouth of the beast." But what's really mysterious here is how this cave came to be and why it's even here. For starters, the information on the Cave of Wonders is actually a little sparse, and looking into the other two movies, The Return of Jafar and The King of Thieves, the cave isn't explained further. What I did find, however, was a potential connection to the biblical King Solomon. For context, King Solomon, whom I had mentioned earlier, was a king of Israel within the Hebrew Bible who was believed to have ruled during the 9th century BCE. In a piece of text called The Testament of Solomon, we find that the king was apparently capable of controlling an army of demons and jinn to do his bidding, tying their lives to objects to keep them in line as his slaves, a fact that might be the reason why Genie is associated with the lamp, as well as the jinn from Aladdin's story. But in his control of the demons, some Arabian legends believed that King Solomon attained a massive amount of wealth, keeping his treasures and many of the demons secured in a cave that no person could find. Another potential connection to the Cave of Wonders in relation to this legend is the apocryphal, called the Cave of Treasures, a series of stories collected over time that explained the genealogy of man that dated back to Adam and Eve, the very first people. Now, I should mention that this text isn't widely known to the vast majority within the Abrahamic faiths, but it's believed to have been the source for the believed age of the universe. What ultimately connects this manuscript to our Cave of Wonders is that the cave itself, as described by the text, was said to have been formed at the side of a mountain sitting just below heaven, being utilized as a makeshift home for Adam and Eve after their expulsion from Eden, that was said to contain a vast amount of jewels, gold, and diamonds deep within it. And what's really seen as the actual treasure within this narrative are the stories within the text and the knowledge that one would gain from it, becoming a better and richer person from reading it. Of course, with the cave's origins explained, the actual appearance of the cave needs a little clarification. First off, it's a tiger's head. I know it's been changed to a lion's head with the live-action release, but this is definitely made to be a tiger, which is fitting because the Cave of Wonders actually connects it to India once again, just like with Raja, Jasmine's tiger, who came from India and whose name means king. Within India, many people throughout the many regions worshipped a tiger deity known as Agrabah, an entity that was believed to have rewarded its worshippers with good fortune, good health, and protection. This is furthered by the fact that many of the worshippers actually share the same space with large cats in their worship of Agrabah to honor and respect them and their deity. This might be why the entrance of the Cave of Wonders is so much larger than those entering into it, to show the amount of veneration the creator of the cave had to the animal, and how much respect should be shown to it. Because I wouldn't want to get devoured by the cave, just like Gazim did. God, that's gotta be agonizing. I think it goes without saying that the story of Aladdin is truly a diamond in the rough. A story that roughly fits into the collection that is 1001 Nights, but is also a story that has seriously captured the hearts and imagination of so many around the world. So much so that we now look at genies and magic within the Islamic world with a completely different light. That the Arabian landscape during its golden age was one of mysticism, when in reality it was an age of pragmatism, cultural exploration, and of commerce. When we gaze into the world of Agrabah, we can see the hidden gems that this world has to offer, and the deep connections Agrabah has to the mythology that forms it. A world that truly is a diamond in the rough. And now, with Agrabah explored and the keyhole sealed, it's high time we traveled on to our next world in our journey. A world of monstrous and stomach-churning possibility. As always, if you've enjoyed this exploration and would like to learn more, don't hesitate to comment with any questions you might have. As well, be sure you're subscribed to the channel to see more videos just like this one. A huge thank you to the community of gamers on the Patreon like Sarah Smith, DMT Infinity, and Eric Groth for helping support the channel. I've left links in the description if you'd like to join them and help support the channel for as little as $2 a month. But with that said, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.